Meeting to order. Everyone will please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll get that flag back here this day. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The school board will convene in closed session tonight to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, and performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility under Wisconsin statutes 19.85, paren 1, paren C, to consider a custodian, special education teacher, special education aide, baseball coach, and head track coach. I'm going to move guest comments up before our presentations tonight. We have at least one guest here who wants to speak, Mr. Hugh Zettel, who is with the Door County Internet Committee? Broadband Committee, and he's going to give us an update.
Sure. Do it from here, there, wherever you're comfortable.
Great. Is it the audio coming through okay?
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you to the school board members for letting me make a few comments. Just by way of introduction, I'm Hugh Zettel, and I reside at 3986 Glen Drive, just a few doors down from where Carl Schultz resided, as you all know him well. I'm a fourth generation Door County native and grew up in working in a family-owned construction, as well as cherry orchard businesses in the Sturgeon Bay area. Just for the audience here, you probably want to know, that they get a halfway decent education, so I just want to make sure I can relay that. I am a graduate of Southern Door High School, don't hold that against me. I'm a proud Eagle, and I also have an undergraduate degree from Milwaukee School of Engineering and an MBA from the University of Chicago. Upon retiring from GE in 2018, my wife and I returned full-time to Door County to basically start our post-retirement journey. We have 3 adult children who are adult most of the time, and 2 wonderful grandchildren. I serve as vice chairperson of the Town of Sevastopol Plan Committee, and I'm also in my first term as a District 14 supervisor, which roughly has the eastern half of the town of Sevastopol and the northern part of the town of Sturgeon Bay, basically the part that's north of the canal. Now, as part of being on the county board, I also serve as the county's newly created broadband committee. And it's in this capacity that I'd like to offer a few remarks. Engagement with school districts by the broadband committee, by the county's new broadband coordinator, and the municipalities that are investing in broadband is vital in 3 respects. Number 1, we all know the negative impacts on families, their kids, and their schools due to the lack of high-speed broadband capability. And we have to provide long-lasting solutions to never experience those challenges in the future. And we can't experience what happened in the COVID times. Broadband-related grant funding will be available at the state and the federal level, and that funding actually recognizes the impact that high-speed broadband has on providing quality education. And linking grant requests to educational impact is key. I think that's one of the things I'm learning is everyone's talking bits and bytes and gigabits and megabits and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, the secret sauce is how well can you tell a compelling story to maximize your grant getting that capability. And the grants are going to be competitive. They're going to focus on underserved and unserved locations. And the grant winners are those that can tell a compelling story with data. Working in the marketing analytics, in engineering, and in the medical device world I was in my career, the common refrain was, in God we trust, all others must bring data. And so data helps tell a compelling story, especially in the competitive world that we're in for getting grants. Now, to maximize municipalities' ability to secure grants, and to reduce the local funding impact on the municipalities, because at the end of the day, no one's providing full payment, right? Actually, the grants are
Mr. Zettel, I just want to, Our policy is 3 minutes for
Okay,
guest
I'm sorry.
speakers. Because this isn't a controversial topic, I'm going to break the rule
Okay.
and give you a few more minutes.
Thank you. I thank you for your consideration. So, in order to make sure we can secure grants and get more than our fair share, if you will, of government funding, I've got kind of 2 asks, basically, and this is going to go out as I talk to all school districts. One is complete the WISER survey. The WISER survey that we're doing as part of the FiberNet initiative in the county is going to be used by the state of Wisconsin as the primary source to determine whether locations are underserved or unserved from a broadband capability perspective. And it's going to be key in the grant determination process. Now, I understand that the school district of Sevastopol sent out an email in the August timeframe to families to complete the survey, so thank you for your help in doing that. The towns of Sevastopol and Jacksonport also sent out surveys to their property owners, and our first reports, as we start to pull data from the state, is that about 16% to 34% for those towns respectively have participated as of early October. Now, some of those results we got from the state are kind of lag the results from those mailings that went out for Jacksonport and Sevastopol, so I suspect that the next data poll will show a bigger jump in participation. And the second item is help us tell the education needs story. Okay, that's where the collaboration comes in. Grants require data to help tell the underserved, unserved story and the affordability story as well. The DPI survey is a great example of the power of data. It helps, it's focused on education. It tells both the ability to access broadband as well as if you could access, is it because it wasn't affordable to you? Or was it because it wasn't available in your area? And I know we suffer that availability big time in the town of Sevastopol, in the area that I serve. Secondly, broadband performance information was also provided in that survey. Can you do streaming? That's one of the big questions that they ask. And can you do it reliably? You know, which we know a lot of people had problems when we put try to do things over cellular networks as an interim solution. That just didn't work well because our cellular network didn't have reliable connections, as we know, in our town. Please participate in the DPI survey. That's my request to all the school districts. Do it now. You don't have to wait as part of school registration to do it. And that data will be, again, very powerful to help us in our grant writing opportunities in municipalities. And if you have this historical data, since broadband access, quite honestly, hasn't improved much over the last 4 or 5 years, if you have historical data, let us know. And when I say let us know, let the county know, because we can work with you once and making sure it can get to the town of Jacksonport, town of Sevastopol, town of Sturgeon Bay, village of Egg Harbor, town of Egg Harbor, so we don't have to do a lot of rework and do a lot of churn, because we know everyone's busy and we want to make sure we're doing it efficiently as possible. As the municipality's efforts to invest in broadband ramp up, we need to ramp up our collaboration with the school districts to ensure that we can get our fair share of grant funding, especially as it relates to the unserved and underserved families in our community for education. Thanks for your time. I greatly appreciate it, and I appreciate your service to the community. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, or at a time that you'd like to talk about more details of what's going on. I'd be honored to do that for you. So thank you.
Anybody have questions for us? Jerry?
Just a comment. When I was working, before I retired, I served on the Economic Development, Brooke County Economic Development Council. And I was on the broadband committee. This is just information for you, so I don't know if you know it. And then I also, in my rural role, I also served on the Office of Rural Health in Washington, D.C.'s Committee on Small Hospitals and Broadband, and this whole topic was huge. Okay? The Economic Development Council, on numerous times, recommended to the county board that they need to get involved in this, so they won't get a hodgepodge of providers all across the county. That went on deaf ears. They chose not to get involved in it. And so I see what's happening is we're going to end up getting a hodgepodge. This like cable. This company takes care of this company takes care of that. Broadband, to me, is so vitally important to the education of rural America, and the economic development of rural America, that it needs to be overseen by the local county government. Make sure it's done well, at the least cost, and uniformly. Or we are going to get, again, a checkerboard of results, with Bailey's Harbor having some capability, Egg Harbor having something else, and in the middle having nothing. So I think, I'm not complaining to you, I'm just educating you and letting you know the background and feeling of the Economic Development Council at that time, and NWTC, because they sent their IT expert up here who counseled us and agreed with the same thing. The county needs to take the role. The county needs to take responsibility with the end goal of being, I would set this as your target, that 90% of the residents of Door County have access to Wi-Fi, internet, high speed, whatever chair we're doing. If you don't do that, it'll be a continued mess, and there'll be somebody from the county back here 7, 8 years from now telling us where we're at in this process. That's all I have to say.
No, thank you. That's great. A lot of lessons learned about the market failure of having broadband access be driven by the marketplace, and unfortunately we have,
That's right.
Cherry picking of deployments, and one of the things that I think that the government has learned, because there's going to be so much funding that's going to be made available, is setting minimum technology requirements and actually setting minimum future-proofing requirements, so that we don't have what happened where AT&T, for example, put DSL type of technology very limited in its capabilities. So those are things that the requirements for grants are putting those requirements on us, or on the municipalities that are seeking grant funding, to make sure that the hodgepodge.
You're absolutely on the mark. Had we done in the 30s the electrification of rural America, in the same way we're bringing IT to rural America, there are sections of even Door County that are still waiting for their first electrical line, because it does not make profit for us to run an electric line to a farm 3/4 of a mile down a single road.
Correct.
So therefore, the lesson learned there is what the county should look at is forming a rural co-op, a cooperative organized company, to begin doing this as a central thing. I'm not a big government man, but in certain areas, again, big government is the only answer.
No, I appreciate that feedback.
That may be too late, because Town of Bailey's Harbor has selected their provider, and they're on schedule to approve their tax rate. Bailey's Harbor has selected their provider and has approved their tax rate, and Jacksonport has selected their provider and approved their tax rate, because I was at the Town of Jacksonport meetings, and I don't know when you became involved with it, nobody gave us much hope that the county was really going to take the lead on
We're
this.
excited you're here, by the way.
This is before you, it was just deaf ears, and go deeper by
We're supporting that.
Right.
But whatever you can do to help, whatever you can do to help our towns will be great.
Yes, no, the county can do to see that this organization and duplication of costs and effort is minimized, and so that's
Yes. Yes, we are not going to allow, at least I know in the town of Sevastopol, is adamant that, there's going to be no cherry picking, relative to just, we'll go after.
Well, Charter wanted to cherry pick
Yes, they did.
Sevastopol and Jacksonport.
And there are a lot of folks in Sevastopol that were really glad that grant funding did not go through, because our approach is to get the whole town done.
Unfortunately, I was on the town board when Charter first came to the town board and asked to bring some high-speed lines, and we knew that the internet was nothing more than just a bunch of games, so we weren't really interested. And they outlined the roads they would go through, and we blindly said, "That sounds good. Who else? Nobody needs this stuff."
It's a critical
So did you have-
utility. It's not a nice to have anymore.
All right, so
Did you have a comment, Sue?
Yes, you mentioned that emails had been sent out by the school and by the town. I did not get any emails regarding the survey.
I know the school, as I understand it, the school district sent out emails to families. So, and so I don't know how that distribution went. So that was just how
I
it was
did not
reported
receive
in
that.
the committee meeting.
You wouldn't have received from the school, you would have received from your town. The
Well, I
town.
didn't receive it from anybody.
And there's a mailing, and as well as a mailing, so I'll double check to see what rural route that you were. There was a mailing in August, and then there was another one that was done. And it's also on the Thomas Sevastopol website. You can click on the link there.
If
And
you don't have internet, you can't get to it, right?
you can do it. You can do it on your phone. You just can't do the. You just can't do the.
Phone's a whole other issue.
You just can't do the speed test. But because again, that's important if you know, especially for families, with kids. The key thing is, yeah, I don't have internet, but those are the most important folks we have to get to. Those that don't have it, period. Because that's going to be huge for us to make sure that we can serve.
Thank you for coming and updating us
Thank you.
tonight.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for your efforts.
We have a presentation then from the Social Studies Department tonight. Mr. Gilbert and Mr. Judas.
Yeah, I think I'm actually just say good job. That's all I needed. All right, good evening, everybody. So we're going to talk about social studies and kind of what we do and what different grade levels are doing. So just first off to start, here's kind of the general layout of some of the things that have happened over the past couple of years. So in 2019, 2020, we got our new textbooks. So that process was completed in the spring of 2020, so that was the heart of COVID, so we were able to accomplish that from the comfort of my couch for the most part. So we went with McGraw-Hill, so the elementary classes in high school did that, middle school stayed with what they knew, which was Teach TCI. We got our new standards in the fall of 2018. We took forever for them to get here, but we spent then the next 2 years and 3 years going to different workshops in Green Bay at the CISA to learn about how to incorporate those standards into our present curriculum.
Yes. So, social studies, it's one of those subjects that you can't teach without literacy. You have to be knowledgeable about how to read a text, how to analyze a text. The two go very hand in hand. When I started here back in 2006, I taught English and social studies. And even though I primarily teach social studies today, I still incorporate a lot of vocabulary and how to read a text, how to analyze a document into our subjects because it's just so crucial for that. So that's one thing that we're constantly working on is looking for ways to students understand the vocabulary and not just read it, but really understand it and how to take notes on it, to underline things, be a very active reader with it. And we think that the plan we have is helping our students in other subjects as well. So.
So like I said, we'll talk about elementary, we'll talk about middle school, we'll talk about high school, but no matter what, as you kind of see, all areas, so the 5 areas or so of social studies are all covered in some shape, way, or form throughout elementary, throughout middle school, and through high school. Obviously that concentration grows as we kind of get as they get older. You'll see that kind of stand out here. So we'll start with elementary first. So like I said, their textbook is McGraw-Hill. So that is new to them, but prior to that they didn't have a textbook really that they went off of. So now, I mean, that's all parts of it. They have consumables and different activities that they can use because of that program. There's parts of American history that show up. There's parts of world studies. There's geography, political science, and economics that show up. They're not doing like supply and demand and like the stock market in elementary, but I'm sure if we did, we probably should expect to hook up onto them to make millions of dollars. So American history is going to show up in 5th grade, and geography is going to show up there. If we look at even different classrooms, so in the 2nd grade classroom, you have different elements of, you just kind of go down the list there. So you have language arts that are also tied into it, like Mr. Hilbert was talking about, that are connected to those social studies. So you have government there, you have economics that show up, and then you have our literacy aspects that show up in the classroom where we have content knowledge, reading comprehension, summarizing, connecting to real-world experiences and some of those standards, talking about how we can be better and involved in the community and be better community members. If we take a look at a third grade classroom, Mr. Hill and Mr. Skippa's classroom, you have more of geography that's showing up there, more interactive with Play-Doh and things that he does there. You have communities that show up quite a bit in his classroom. Like I said, that kind of want to bring in those two, both the school and the community together. You have the government aspect and the economics aspect, and what he does is he does a lot of stuff at Heritage Hill and Crossroads, and so he gets them out into the community that way. And then some online stuff. I'm sure some of us have played the Oregon Trail before as we were kind of growing up, and that's a little bit more modernized for our purposes today, but those kind of activities happen. If we move to middle school, there you will find more of Teach TCI. So this is Mr. Resloff and Mr. Hilbert. They had Teach TCI before. They liked it. They felt comfortable with it and what it was doing, and so they kept it. But here you'll see World Studies. Mr. Hilbert's class was talking about. It's kind of multiple social studies that show up, and then American history also shows up here as well. So Mr. Retzloff's class, like I said, uses Teach TCI. But this is your World Studies group. So this is going to be your Romans, your Greeks, all those things will kind of show up there. But like I said, the written component, the writing component is going to be conducting research and writing information out, or oral arguments, debating, things like that are going to show up more. And so primary, secondary sources are very important, especially getting to 6th grade and up, and you'll see more of that as it kind of goes. Okay, pop up. Yep.
So one thing I just wanted to kind of clarify is I get asked quite a bit when people ask, what do you teach? I say, well, I teach social studies. And after they ask where I teach it, they're always curious, well, what is social studies? A lot of people hear that term, but they don't know exactly what it means. And just to kind of clarify, social studies is really an umbrella term for a lot of subcategories. So the categories in any order are government, civics, history, geography, anthropology, behavioral sciences, and economics. And what we're really trying to build with our curriculum and our courses is really interconnecting these all together. Because I tell students all the time, you can't study history without geography. You have to know about the natural environment. You can't study economics without knowing a little bit about government. So in our government class right now, we're talking a lot about economics and looking at command economies versus free market economies and really weaving those in together. So that's one thing that we're always stressing is really trying to tie all these together into one. When it comes to the middle school, I like to think of the middle school social studies class, 7th grade, as one where we take the students and we kind of pull everything together from what they learned in elementary. And I understand that in elementary grades, sometimes social studies gets pushed on the back burner a little bit. A lot of it's language arts, math, and science. So when they come to 7th grade, we just kind of pull it all together. We start simple. We talk about the natural environment of our planet. Then we get into a unit on culture. Then we talk about population demographics. And then we kind of get into a little bit of economics. And for those of you that have taught before, you probably realize that there are some topics that students can only grasp at a certain age. When you talk about numbers, you talk about numbers like population numbers, that can be hard for someone in elementary to grasp. As they get into middle school, they kind of start to understand things a little bit more and kind of connecting it. So one sample I wanted to give you is in our unit on population demographics. This is a good core question. I like to do a lot of big core questions, and this is one activity we do where the core question is what factors or variables influence where humans settle? Why are some places more densely populated than others? And I put up a population density map, and by this point we've talked about density maps, and we just kind of brainstorm things. Why are some parts of the world so packed with people, and other parts are virtually uninhabitable or uninhabited? And we kind of brainstorm, we just get ideas out there, and then what they do is for the one activities, they pick maybe 5 countries at random. They can go through the atlas, they can pick whatever countries they want to, and then they look for maps that help them try to figure out examples of that. So I'm just going to show you one example. The country of China, most people know, is the world's most populated country as of now. India is projected to take it over in the next 10 years or less. But most students know that China is the most populated with over 1 billion people. So one activity that we do is we look at different maps. So we look at a population density map of China, and we understand from this point that we have people that are packed into a very small area of China. You have some areas that are actually uninhabited. So it's interesting for the students to think about, well, how could there be the most populated country in the world and there's no one that lives there? And then after we do some research, we find out that, well, if you look at an elevation map of China, you'll see that the elevation must play a very important role, because the western part of China is very unpopulated, but it has a very high elevation. As you go further east near the ocean, the elevation is much closer to sea level, which usually has more people. And then another map we might look at is a precipitation map to see how that's all connected. And those are some of the big things we're trying to do in 7th grade, is just take these big ideas and kind of pull them all together and kind of lay the groundwork for future social studies classes for that. So those are some examples of 7th grade. And then in 8th grade, it's an early U.S. history class. Mr. Judas teaches modern U.S. history, which is about pre-Civil War to modern day. And in 8th grade, we do a lot of early U.S. history. And even though they get early U.S. history in grade school, it's really kind of taking the stuff they learned and kind of building off that. Because there's going to be some terms and ideas that are going to be a little hard to understand when they're in grade school. As they get older, they'll understand that. And we do a lot, we really start laying the groundwork for government class, which is now moved to a junior level class. It was a freshman class, now it's a junior level class, which I like a lot, because I think as juniors they're a lot more developmentally able to understand some big concepts. So this is where we start looking at primary source documents, Declaration of Independence, the US Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Those are things we spend a lot of time on and trying to lay that groundwork so that when they come back to me later on, we can kind of refresh a little bit and then move from there. And that's kind of where we get into high school. So I'll give it back to Mr. Judas while he talks about his high school classes. All right. I'll be your battle white tonight.
Can I buy a bottle?
We're glad you're here.
I'll take a beat. Okay, so as we move to high school, so these are all the classes that we offer in person. There is some online classes that are AP type classes that they can take as well. So psychology, Mr. Hilbert teaches. I'll teach economics, American and conflict. Sometimes world studies, me and Mr. Hilbert will switch that on and off. Mr. Hilbert will teach government, and I'll have American history and geography. So you have the grade levels that those things happen. Most classes up there are kind of all over the place as far as the diversity that shows up between the grade levels. You want to talk about your high school?
Sure. So I teach 3 high school classes, a world studies class, government/civics, and psychology. World studies is a class that looks at a lot of different things. We have a unit on really reviewing map skills. We get into civilizations. We get into a big unit on religion and looking at just kind of major religions and looking at similarities and differences with that. Government is one of those classes that we're always very pressed for time. There's a lot to cover in a small amount of time, but it really kind of lays the groundwork for being better citizens, being participants and being citizens that participate in our democratic republic. And then psychology, my personal favorite, is a study of human behavior. And this is a class I really enjoy a lot because the students who take it are usually really engaged in the class. I've had a lot of students come back after high school and say, wow, your psychology class really helped me with intro to psychology in college. And again, I'm always reminding these students that all these classes are connected in some way, shape, or form. You're going to find history and psychology. You're going to find geography and government. You're going to find anthropology and world studies. And the more they can see that, the more they can have a well-rounded social studies abilities as they leave for college or whatever they decide to get into after. So it's one of those things where we're always trying to make things just a little bit better. Never settle with what we have, just always looking for ways to tweak things just a little bit, make it better, and collaborate whenever we can.
Okay, so we'll start with American history. So these are the juniors. Here they are going to, so we're going to start a little bit before the Civil War to get the understanding of what's happening before the Civil War, and we try to get to as close to the present as possible. That was always debatable in the last few years. COVID has kind of derailed any attempt to get anywhere close to that point. But we tried to get there as present as possible. We'll start, like I said, from pre-Civil War, and we'll get our way to as close as we can to current time. But like I said, a lot of these things are going to repeat itself, but we do a lot of, obviously we focus on the content knowledge, what's going on. We spend a lot of time with primary and secondary sources. We do a lot of document-based evidence, so that is giving them documents, giving them a central question, and having them kind of decide. We do a lot of trying to get them arguing with each other, learning how to do that, learning how to debating, either that is through writing or through talking to each other one shape, way, or form, but we try to do that in all classes. So it's going to be kind of a common theme as you see it. Geography is another core class. American history and geography are both core. So we take time looking at different parts of the world. And so when we go to a region, so right now US and Canada, we talk about the physical geography, the human geography, and then the environment and things that are happening in it, and the ways that we're affecting it and ways that can be fixed. We do that throughout. So there's several different regions throughout, and we focus on those regions. Some regions are more, have more different parts of regions that we can't quite focus on all of them, but we try to get as much as we can in. And like I said, the same pattern of the different skills and things that we do are all present in those. Economics, we try to give them a good base of understanding of that. So economics is usually the most challenging, I think, as far as the social studies goes. We don't get too much into the math because you can get super complex super fast if you really wanted to do so, but we try to give them a good base, and so that if they wanted to go to college with it, that they'd have a good understanding and a good starting point to do so. American conflict is an elective class as well as economics is. Here we study some of our major wars. Usually I don't get through all of them. Usually I kind of let the students pick at what they want to focus on. I usually start with the American Revolution no matter what, and then I kind of let them pick and choose to what they want kind of to do next. Right now we're on World War I. So one of the things that we do is there's a simulation right there. So right now we have World War I breaking out in my class, and it started out the other day where they were kind of separated, and now they're kind of forming alliances and getting next to each other. And I'm generally concerned tomorrow I'm going to have trenches built up, and I don't know what's going to happen. It might be interesting.
History repeats itself. So
and that is all of our classes. So that's all I have for you.
How do you maneuver through all the current revisionist world of history as the way we were taught it? What are the standards that are coming down from the state with regards to history?
Well, you know, when I talk to generations that went to school in the past, what I hear a lot is, you know, back in the day there was a lot of names and dates, a lot of memorization. We try to not get into that too much. With the standards themselves, a lot of the standards aren't so much about students will know the causes of the Revolutionary War. The standards might say things like students will analyze documents to understand, arguments for and against going to war with Great Britain. You know, looking at like a Thomas Paine sort of argument versus a loyalist or things like that. So time is really of the essence. A lot of times we try to weave things in as best we can. When it comes to current events, we try to get as much of that as we can into it, and looking at how history repeats itself and how what's happening now ties into that. But like, the standards, again, they're not very specific as to very factual things that must be known. It's very more analyzing and looking at things through different lenses, if you will.
So do you see any problems with, like, I don't know, overcoming a local culture versus what you're teaching in history or social studies? I mean, do you see that in this school district?
No.
So the students seem,
challenging your curriculum, right?
students have a fairly open mind. You don't see any embedded cultural.
Some students have more of a political lean than others, but I couldn't tell you. I don't have an exact number of how many would go a certain way or a certain way or not. So
It's political, not cultural.
Well,
The lead, you see.
two are.
Yeah, I guess I would.
Well, I'll tell you, when I come back from my Lieberman, we're going to be getting into political ideology, which I know is a very sensitive topic. And one of the first things we do is we actually look at Rorschach ink blot tests. and we just kind of talk about, we kind of go around saying, what do you see in this image, and why do you see that? Just kind of get the idea that we see things differently in the world, and there's nothing wrong with seeing things differently, but it's important to understand that people see things differently, and understanding why people feel that way might help you understand, why there's differences in the world that we live in with viewpoints. So, but as for parents, I haven't had a lot, mostly pretty supportive. I'm very happy to talk about anything I teach. I welcome parents to come in and sit in for a class. Yeah, we've had really a lot of support.
So if I walk into your class and say, what was the main event which caused World War I to break out?
Yeah.
Assassination of Archbishop Francis.
Yep.
Because that's a cause.
Yep.
Depends which kid you ask.
Huh?
I said depends which kid you ask.
Just take off. You don't want to get into the subject. What is it? We don't want to get into the detail of what started things, but if we don't know what started things, we are bound by destiny to repeat those things. So therefore, we went from World War I, and we went into World War II with the same issues that started World War I. So we never learned anything, and then if we go back into Vietnam and rather we never learned there's lessons to be learned or causes which cause things. And I think it's really important for students to understand the causes. But we don't teach this really.
So we teach, they're getting the content, they're getting the causes, they're getting all those things, but they're also getting the primary sources of people at that time. Those primary sources are coming from people that live that experience, so they're getting that as well. And then they're arguing about that. And so when we're in the Civil War, we're talking about the radical Republicans, and were those radical Republicans was what they wanted to do radical. And here's a document from Thaddeus Stevens, who's a radical Republican, and here's a document from Andrew Johnson, who's a Democrat. This is what his plan was. This is what Andrew Johnson's plan was what Andrew Johnson, what Thaddeus Stevens wanted to do, is to make him a radical Republican. So that's what we're doing. So we're still teaching the history, we're still teaching the causes. All those things are coming up. We make sure that we get that content knowledge in there, but it's also important that these students understand the literacy and are able to argue it by writing and things like that. So all that information is still happening.
And what I like about now teaching government civics at a junior level is that I tell the juniors, you're going to be going into more detail to Judas in maybe a month from now. So we can bounce off ideas. I can say, hey, when are you going to be getting to the progressive era? When are you going to be getting to Roosevelt's New Deal? And I can kind of lay some groundwork a little bit. And then when they go to back to him in a few weeks, they'll kind of say, oh yeah, I remember hearing about that. The more they can hear from more teachers, the better. I think we kind of think that students hear something one time and it's in their brain. It's not like that. Usually it goes in one ear out the other. But if they can keep hearing it from different teachers and different viewpoints, it will stick better with them. And that's what we're trying to do.
Excellent.
Do you get much debate amongst the students?
Yeah, we do. It's tough though. It's one of the tougher things to do.
In my own experience, my world history teacher in 1965, the world was still here, the dinosaurs were gone, but he was really wacko. But he sparked enough for us to engage in great conversations and great debates. And I may never agree with him politically, but I always say, wow, he got us really starting to think and examine issues and stuff like that and debate that.
A follow-up period. I'm just curious if you're willing to comment. You said it's very hard for debate. I'm kind of just curious, is it because our kids just aren't good at preparing debate points and stuff like that? Or is it that our community can't even tolerate a perspective that's different than theirs? So when you make that statement, is that a fair statement, or am I not missing?
No, you're on the right track. We have some students who, by nature, are very soft-spoken and don't like to comment a lot. And we have some that are very vocal and really like to get their point out there. So kind of finding that balance of giving everybody time to get their ideas together, be respectful of other people's opinions and trying to understand people's viewpoints. That's a big challenge. I think sometimes students maybe just want to have the talking points of what the arguments are and just not always think for themselves what they are. So it's tricky to kind of moderate that and give equal time. It's definitely one of the harder parts about teaching.
Yeah.
It really is.
I ask only, and in all the stuff that you bridge stuff together, right? My biggest thing that I always like to bring up is the critical thinking is something that all the teaching staff and parents can help our kids so that when they get out in the world, or this world or any future world, and understanding the history, there are different perspectives.
Mhm.
And it's okay to have a different agreement than you, but we should be able to have a discussion about it and then go home and have dinner and go to bed. I mean, you know,
Right.
so that's why I asked. I think that's important. I mean, that's what I heard of my kids have experienced that, so keep doing that one. I mean, I think that's.
That was excellent. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Weidman receives a recognition tonight.
She's okay.
You're on stage.
We expect a speech too.
Really?
Just as we expect our teachers and our students to be learning and growing continuously, I think we need to hold ourselves to the same standard. And I am pleased on behalf of WASB, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, to present this recognition this evening. It is a certificate of achievement awarding level 2 to Dick Weidman for demonstrating a high level of commitment to Wisconsin public school students by participating in WASB professional development opportunities. So Dick, congratulations.
Well, thank you. I've always considered it a pleasure and an honor to be on the school board. Academically, I think it's one of the most important things we can do for our community. And I appreciate the recognition. Thank you.
3 more levels to go to level 5.
I feel next year you're level 5.
Is there anything anyone wishes removed from the consent agenda? If not, the consent agenda is approved by consent and includes donations from the Peninsula Pacers of $400 for the girls' basketball and various donations in memory of Jim Rarica, who was an art teacher here, totaling $3,550 for the art program and the drama club. Thank you for those.
And on that note, we've, like just today, I got another donation coming in, so they're still rolling in. Yep.
We'll move to the administrator's reports and begin with Mr. Schaefer.
I think the biggest thing to really announce for, I think just a great advertisement for our school and our facilities is tomorrow we are going to be celebrating our NWTC program, a partnership with them in creating a manufacturing and machining program for students available to all students in Door County. We currently have 3 students from Southern Door and then 2 Sevastopol students. There's going to be media outlets here tomorrow. There's going to be probably over, it's planning anywhere between 30 to 55 to 60 people. All of our partners, organizations, companies that are supporting this program and allowing it to work are going to be here tomorrow. It's going to be a great opportunity for us to not only advertise the great work that the students are doing and what's being offered to them, it's just also a great way to advertise this beautiful building and the facilities available. We're also going to be unveiling a banner in the machine shop at the end of it so everyone can see who our great supporters are and people who are promoting this program. We're, I think, right now doing a really great job of advertising with all the Door County schools to enroll in this program next year. It's a great opportunity for students to get, they can earn up to 16 college credits in machining, which is really awesome, and we're just looking forward to entertaining everybody and welcoming them to our great school and home and showing what we are offering the community and beyond. So it's an excellent opportunity for our school and the great instructors that we have too. It's really awesome to see their investment in the students.
I have a question. On your report, you reference character strong, and then you have a challenges the character strong buy-in. Is that buy-in by the students or buy-in by the staff?
I think right now, I think it's a challenge right now because it's a new program and we're doing it across, within our whole school, And I think one of the things when you are implementing a new program and in Character Strong, I think one of the factors, for an example, I sat in on a Character Strong lesson, one of their last lessons, lesson 4, which is primarily every 6th through 12th grade, setting up classroom agreements. Like, what are we going to agree to do when we go through this program, such as, attentive listening, mutual respect. The group that I was with, we talked about what empathy means and how to have empathy when you don't experience what someone else is going through. And with some of the students that I've met with, I've had some students talk to me and they're like, Mr. Schaefer, why are we doing Character Strong? I feel like it's a get-to-know-you program. Well, the first month of Character Strong is really about trying to create a safe environment for all the students. And so some of them are feeling like, oh, this is just an opportunity to get to know everybody, which is not what Character Strong is at all. It's just trying to create a safe space. So like within the group that I was working with, I think it was 15 students or so, and I had them do an activity where they covered their eyes, so their eyes were covered, and I asked them to vote on a scale of 1 to 5, what was their trust level within the group. And our average score was 2, which is really concerning, because for Character Strong to really help and to have a profound impact on our students' development and growth, there's going to have to be a level of trust. And in another classroom, it was brought up that some of the students are worried about sharing stuff because they're worried that young people are going to talk about things that were talked about within their groups. And these are challenges that our teachers have to overcome to create safe space and come to a common agreement of expectation and what we need to do. And so I think building the safety net and trust to talk about things as we move further, the topics will become more intense, where they're really going to challenge them character-wise. And I guess it's my favorite lesson because in my inspirational speaking opportunities that I've had in working with young people, I think currently we have a lot of young people who find value in things that can easily change within a short period of time. Like their value is based on what their friends think of them. Well, your friends can change their opinion like the weather, and putting your value in that is always a dangerous thing. Or if you're an athlete and you play football or baseball or basketball or whatever, volleyball, that your identity is I'm so-and-so a volleyball player, which, I talked to one young person who asked me about that, and I said, so what happens if you get into a car accident tonight and you become a quadriplegic or something and you never get to play your sport again? Then what happens? If your value is in the sport you play, that's where you find your self-worth. And I think it's a really great life lesson for all of us who have an opportunity to work with young people. It is our duty and responsibility to teach young people that we need to find our value in who we are as a person. Like for example, I have a principles card that I carry with me. It has my 9 life principles. One of my life principles is I give 100% in everything I do, regardless of how I feel. And that's one of my principles. And that's a value that no one can take from me. No matter what happens to me, I can always apply that value to life. And our young people don't have that, because if somebody likes our Facebook post or responds to our Snapchat, that gives us awesome value. And that's a problem, because now we have students whose emotional well-being, they're up and down, because we're finding value in things that change all the time. And that's what Character Strong is all about.
Is this something that will go year after year and we'll just keep this part of our school? Is that correct?
It is our goal to keep the curriculum going, yes.
I can't say enough how support of this program that I am. To the point, last night, I talked about the value that you just said to my student in this building. Ignorantly though, because I don't understand it, right? But I love the idea and everything I've heard so far. And I've been lucky enough to sit in these meetings with you to hear this. As we get this more developed, and that's just helping, and if we already have, and I've missed it in emails, bad on me. I think it would be something to talk about at some point, is to send something home to parents. Not a dissertation, not a PhD level, anything, but just a few things about what character strong is, because I had a really good discussion with my freshman about value last night, just because and I think it's important. And so that's all I was trying to think is, I didn't know that until you brought it up, and I get the concept, you raise your kids, I kind of understand it, that's why I like it so much, because it relates to how I've been raised. But that would be interesting, not giving out actions, because when I speak, but that would be neat if we could figure out how to somehow, and I know, and I got feedback that some kids are more taking it seriously than others, but that will come with time. But I think that's great if we could start, and this is all of education, right? Inspiring a few more discussions at home about that topic. The topic that we brought about before, and intolerance and stuff like that, would benefit greatly. So, I don't know the answer. I'm in full support. I think it's awesome, and I give it some time. We have to be patient to get it to take root in our community, or in our school, but thank you. That's good.
Well, another thing, I mean, we can do down the road, if it's an interest of the board, is that I can kind of take you through a lesson, a middle school or a high school lesson. Not the whole thing, because they're typically 35, 40 minutes long, but I mean, to kind of see the components. There's 5 main components to every lesson, every time. And, right now, we got to make sure that, like, for example, one of the group that I sat in, one of the discussion cards was, what is something you're grateful for? And I was really surprised, but the students that were in there initially were laughing about it. And some couldn't even share one thing that they were grateful for. Well, as somebody who spoke to people about the importance of making a gratitude journal, and every night before you go to bed, write 5 different things that you're grateful for. And so I started the group. And they asked, so the instructor, the teacher said, well, Mr. Schaefer, what are you grateful for? And it changed the dynamics, because when the question popped up, students were laughing. And they didn't know how to respond. And they didn't want to be so in-depth or intimate about it, because if I get really emotional or about something really serious, you know what I mean, that safety net. Well, the score in that room was a 2. So I just talked about, so one thing I'm grateful for is my health. One of the teachers that I worked with last year, very young teacher, she was our music teacher, just had a baby, less than a year old. She's got stage 4 cancer. And I was talking about, now every day that teacher has to look at her daughter in the eye and not know. And I also have one of my best, dearest friends, his wife has got stage 4 cancer. Every day I wake up, I never have to deal with that. I don't have to worry about that with my family. I'm grateful for that. And that's why the discussion of empathy started to become, because students who have a lot of anxiety are low in empathy. There's a lot of research to support that. So we offer a program that's allowing our students to be aware, but it is up to each instructor to create an environment where risk-taking is encouraged. And there is a value in respecting everybody in the room and what they have to share, and be there to support and make each other better. In our room, we put one of our agreements is to have each other's back. Be supportive of somebody when they're sharing something personal, and maybe something that you don't have to experience. For example, an example that was brought up was, maybe there's a student who doesn't get to eat supper every night, but you do. So how do you have empathy? And that was a question we brought up. So how do you handle that if a student would bring that up in a group? I don't eat dinner at night. My only time I eat is here at school. But you're eating it whenever you want.
Yep, so this is maybe a presentation we can have. I think we've got a couple more of these curriculum presentations to get through. One or 2 more.
We do.
Thanks.
Sorry, I get a little passionate about character strong. I really believe it.
It sounds like a good program, so I think when we get through we'll put it into the rotation of the curriculum presentations. It'll be good. Mr. Hills.
All right, thank you very much. Just wanted to hit on a few highlights. Our conferences, parent-teacher conferences were the other night, and we had 90% attendance at those conferences, which were volunteer. 90%? So, what's that? You said 90%? 90%, yeah. So, excellent, and that's not including some that couldn't be scheduled that night. The teachers are working on trying to schedule other times. So, really outstanding there. I'd also like to give some kudos to Mrs. Borrell and Mrs. Gruters and Mrs. Wiesner for putting together the trick or treat out at the Eco Lab. This will be the third year. It started off as something that we needed to do for COVID reasons. Kids couldn't go trick or treating, and so we ended up doing something out at the Eco Lab, and it's carried on in part because it's been an enjoyable experience, but the second grade teachers also take and use the counting of the candy and distributing it and those kind of things as a real life math problem. And the kids really get into that because it matters. So they've found a lot of value in doing that. And then the last thing, just want to share, having attended the Elementary Principals Conference, just one little aha that came out as a part of that. You can read some of the rest, but the concept of a C versus an O. And it seems intuitive, but the idea that a C is an open letter and an O is a closed letter. And when you're teaching from an O perspective, basically you're the teacher telling the kid what they need to know. And when you have that C, you still get to tell the student what things are important, but you leave some room open for the student to inject themselves, whether that's their own experiences, what they've been learning, any of those kind of things. So I think it's just important to keep in mind that any lessons that you're teaching, that you do that. And so I shared some of those kind of things with the staff the other day at the staff meeting.
Thank you. Ms. Margraf?
Can I just ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. The Child Find, is this a program, is this something new or?
No, it's something that we do annually. We look for students who are going to be school age next year, and we want to make sure that we give families an opportunity to come in, find out a little bit about what we're about, and we get to know them so that we've got them on our enrollment records.
So it's not necessary, I mean.
You don't have to have attended that in order to come here. I mean, we have some students that show up first day of school.
It's not geared for like homeschool children?
No. We've got records from the county in terms of students who are that age, and we get letters out to them. We send stuff through the newspaper and other media just to make families aware.
Just want the board to know that the IEP audit update, or the update is going, the IEP audit is going really, really well. And been able to, in a short time, come up with some professional development for the staff to be able to go through. And I thank the teachers that sat on that team with me, Callie Asher, Chris Horvat, and Danielle Hansen. But we've been able to already in this short time create an exemplar for the other special education teachers to use. So when they are writing their IEPs that they're already compliant. Also, I plan on doing one-to-one and mentoring and coaching with those teachers too, to be very specific about what needs to change. And then finally too, in our next pupil services meeting, we're going to do an IEP goal workshop. So all that current knowledge gets to them as soon as possible, so we we have strong documents for our students and strong plans.
Here's a question. When did we score that we're on the national press? There's all this discussion of the scores, reading and math scores in the United States this past year. You guys went to 23 in reading and 40-something in math on a worldwide basis. Took the U.S. public schools took the largest plunge in the last 30 years or 4 years. When do we get those scores in?
I think, if I can speak, there's two different scores that we're looking at. There's the forward exam and like the state report card, those kind of things is something that's released in the middle of November.
So what's the press going after right now?
They're using the NAEP scores, which are national scores. And
so they'll break that down by school?
No, it's they take samplings of different schools and put some of those things together.
They're rated by state, Wisconsin?
Wisconsin did better than the national average in both the reading and the math, although we've dropped from where we were a number of years ago.
I wonder, when we moved here, I know from Illinois, Wisconsin was like 2 or 3. There's always a battle between Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. But last year I heard Wisconsin was like 13th or something.
I know we've dropped, I don't know the exact number.
Have we ever been selected for NAEP?
Yes, 3 years ago. So
Okay.
it's random.
Oh, that is.
So 3 years ago, we did.
Is NAEP a separate test, or they just
Yes.
take our test data?
They come in for anywhere up to 3 days and test their students. So
Wow.
they come in and I prepare as the, I know how to, prepare parents that it's happening and give the folks that come in all the resources that they need, but they come in, our kids come in and they take over and do all the testing. Our staff has nothing to do with that.
They test the whole school.
No, certain grade level.
Oh, okay, yeah, I think it's like 8th, 7th and 3rd, or 7th and 4th. I think they're all good.
Yeah.
Is that
Then it's a
enough?
big conversation online, that it's a national score and everybody wants to throw every school under the bus, not realize, look at your own area and see what's happening there. Does anybody have any questions on the athletic director gifted and talented report they want to direct?
I have one question on one of the last little lines, which I've heard some complaints too, so I didn't know if we want to talk about at some point in the future is the whole, I know we've talked about in the past, but letting people walk through the building between the two gyms.
Don't have to walk outside.
I know we did that because there were some kids that did not nice things or.
Well, and the fact that we can't stop them going upstairs of these learning stairs and around in the other stairwell or the elevators, because you can't turn, so security reasons, and when they play, that's the shortest distance across the parking lot.
No, I understand. I was just, I've heard that too. I was just curious if, is there some point down the road that we look at what that security threat really is and then is there any mitigation?
We have to have more personnel here to manage who's in the building.
Well, I'm just saying, do we want to have it, if all the doors are locked, what are they?
Well, how many is numerous? And okay, so my question always is, numerous, how many is numerous? And what events are these at?
It's like when they have the volleyball, JV1, JV2, we'll have the same thing with basketball. If there's a JV1, JV2 for boys basketball, girls don't have enough girls to have 2 JV teams. And then they end up playing a 6 o'clock game in both gyms, and then they got to come into the high school gym for the second game. They don't want to go outside and come around, they want to come through the building. But if they come through, they're going to go any place in the building they want, which we had last year.
And I was just asking.
You're on a Saturday for a tournament.
Right, anytime both gyms are used, I would say someone makes a comment. But again, there's other schools you gotta go inside, it's not a big deal. I was just curious if, down the road or something. We don't have to solve anything today, because it's not even on the agenda, I was just taking note of that.
If there was an easy way to go from one gym to the other, but that's quite a haul from the elementary gym to the high school gym.
Because I mean, you look at like Southern Door, you gotta, to navigate from one gym to the other, you are inside, but there's all these signs and it's a maze, but you can make it if you follow the signs.
Right. Their layout's a little different too, because it's a one-story building.
Yeah. So-
Here you can go upstairs and hike till Monday.
Yeah, no, that
Something
was just a
Yeah,
question.
I haven't
Not
been to Southern Door,
expecting
they
any more
are,
than that, I just.
I've been to Southern Door, Gibraltar, but those are one-story
I'm good where we're
buildings.
at, I was just kind of curious if,
Yeah.
because they're raised for a future.
Agenda item on next week.
The other answer,
Yeah, that's what I was going.
the other thing you could do is you could do JV2 at 4:30 and then have JV1 at 6 o'clock and then varsity at 7:30 and just use one gym. I don't
Well,
think that's
we don't do that
advantageous.
already for good reason, I mean, because people don't have the time and the.
Other people do that.
Yeah,
There's other places in the state they do it that way.
so.
Absolutely. There's other places in the state where there are multiple locations to play the games too.
Yeah, and so I was just curious if there'd be a future discussion on that, if there's no
We
need, I'm not
bounced
asking
around.
for
I
it
don't know
now.
the best way of doing it with this size of building.
And it's
shape
new,
of
give
it.
us a few more years, people will be used to it. I think that's all.
I guess the athletic director and the principal and the superintendent will have to
That's
keep
kind of what
communicating on
I was
it.
just kind of picking at it to see if
Yeah.
there's.
Close catwalk or something.
There you go.
It's gotta be some movable. It's like with how many credits students are learning that problem solve. I'm here, I gotta be there.
See, critical thinking,
Now,
see?
I gotta critical
It's
think
perfect.
about it as the shortest way and the fastest way to get
And
there.
then you'll see the kids that go out with no shorts and t-shirts because they'll figure it out, it's not hard. 87 steps.
It doesn't matter how cold it is, the kids are gonna wear shorts.
Right, I know, that's.
It's probably not the kids complaining, it's probably the.
Sorry, yeah.
So, superintendent's report.
At meeting the first, the question of why can't they just allow their sick days to build up as high as they want and then cash them in? I looked at our certified staff, so it's teachers and administrators. We have 3 teachers or certified staff that have greater than 120, and we have 3 others that are over 100. So the cost, if you buy those out at the end of the year, could be a few $1,000s depending what you value a per day rate at. I checked with Mary Gerber, and she said, well, you got a couple things going here. She said, one, what about your support staff, because you'll have days there as well. And she says you don't want to encumber future liability based on these days, so that's why you have a cap in place. So my recommendation will be to always go with a cap on those and not to expand it on. Also, the last couple of weeks, I've started working on looking at the schedule for 23-24 with staffing needs. Mr. Hiltz and I were looking at the exploratory schedules for the elementary level, and then I met with all the elementary or the exploratory teachers for middle school, high school, and then today Mrs. Malcor and Mr. Schaefer and I sat down and started looking at all the schedules of high school and the needs and wants, because what's unique right now is our 8th grade class is that 3-section class, and they're going to become high schoolers. And so like English 9 will need 3 sections next year, where always in the past it's only been 2. But then the middle school will need less. And there's some cleaning up and some oddities in there that we can work on to be more efficient with our staff. And then the third thing I want to highlight is last week we had Door County Public Health in here to administer flu shots and COVID boosters for grades 6 through 12 with parental consent, and there was a mix-up in a shot with one particular student. I talked to Dan Trinago from Sturgeon Bay, and he had a great idea, and he did it the right way. I did it the wrong way. He only allowed public health to come in and do the flu shots, not the COVID dose, but we did have a situation there that was not pretty because the kid got the wrong shot. So everything's fine, it's like the boy's okay and everything, but that was a error. I wish I would have been more conservative like Dan was over at Sturgeon Bay.
But the story is that they, as a medication error, they have policies for medication errors you need to follow.
Right, but whenever you invite someone in your house, you're in charge of it. So that's our responsibility, even though we didn't administer it.
But they didn't follow their policy.
They made error, they didn't get to follow up clean, right? Right.
So unless the board feels they want to have further discussion at some point in time regarding the sick day matter that came before meet and confer, we'll just take that back to meet and confer and explain that rationale to them.
There is an issue if you cash your sick time in. You only get paid for 90%. That's a federal thing.
That's
No, it's federal.
I don't have anything, we don't have any committee reports agenda. Budget report.
We received $201,052 sparsity aid. 85% of the Phase 2 project has been paid for at this point, and the revenues in Fund 50 reflect both payments for lunch claims and lunch payments from students and staff. And the payments for lunches for students and staff, but for students is different than it has been for the last 2 school years, because there hasn't been, it's been free lunch for everybody for almost 2 years now, so it's back to paying. And if you're a parent and you get the robocall on Tuesday night that your account is low, that's what we're back at. So, yeah. Now, Carl, anything else you'd like to highlight here?
No, just we'll do the budget coming up in later in the week.
Right.
Facilities, building and field.
This building, we're still having a problem with the boilers and the computers turning off, and then Dan's got to reset them. We have 4 boilers, and some mornings he has 1 or 2 he has to touch up every morning, and it's a computer glitch. He's still working with the company on that. And there's a downspout over by, I don't know what door number it is, but it's by Tommy Hoslinger's office as you come out. Myron's got to come back, and that was the one that they put underneath the sidewalk over the summer. Well, it's capped still, so before we get ice, that has to get arranged. And then the heating system in the wood shop is a little loud, and so we're looking into why that's loud like that. Otherwise, I don't think anything else.
How many open work orders do you still have regard to construction?
The construction, I've got the greenhouse and downspout and heating. I think that's it. The field's different. The field, we have a punch list on the field. I can't remember what day it was. It was a Tuesday. And we have a list of like 5 things we want done out there. One of them is they haven't put the correct amps in for the breaker box because they're backward on the parts. That's why, yeah, because we've used it both for the football games since we've used it. So it's a 400 amp service we're supposed to have, and I think we have currently, was it 2 125s or 2 150s? It's not 400, I know that. So that's still.
That's parts on backward.
Yeah, right, that's what we're waiting for there, so. And that facility out there has been winterized now. And you know how there's the bubbler on the outside on the south side? Maintenance took that off and put it in the maintenance room inside the facility. And that room, they're leaving the heat on at 40 degrees, maybe 45, I don't know what they said that, can't remember, but that's gonna be always heated a little bit in the winter time, so, you know, but all the lines have been drained and all that kind of stuff, so.
So you only have like 3 or 4 open work orders?
Yeah, and then, I guess the other thing about building is next week, Tuesday, I don't know what time the lady from the county about the FFA sign, I want her to come out. She hasn't given me an exact time yet. As soon as I do, I'll let the Building and Grounds Committee know so that anyone that's available at that time can meet with her. She sent us the regulations and why we can't have a sign identical to the town hall next to us. And so we want to have a meeting with her on site to explain what we can do and why we can do what we can, why we can't do what we can't do.
I'm excited about that because
I think that's November 1st. I got her coming. I don't know what time.
Because we want to talk about signage, right? We have families that turn over, we have visitors that come here, so, you know, how do you tell them where to go? There's got to be some way.
Yeah, now especially, like at Mac and I, we're getting close to, well, there's no Advantage Day, like savings time anymore. If you've never been here, there is no way you'd ever find this bus.
You're right.
That's why we're pushing on the signage.
So just so you know.
Kyle's got it set up, so she'll come out.
County-wide ordinance.
Well, there's always, but you can always take it to the right board.
Well, first we want to work with her and try and get it right.
That's one very well.
Well, she's coming out.
She's coming out, that's the first step. And first we got to know.
You taking notes, sir?
We got to know first, but we're working it, so. And we do now have a light, this summer we have the light put on at the end of Pioneer Way, and if you go out that way tonight, it goes all the way to the corner.
It's kind of difficult getting here tonight in darkness.
Yeah.
I've canvassed enough in the area now that I kind of know it pretty good, so.
You don't count.
Under board goals, before you leave tonight, I'll give you, I took each of the categories that we talked about in our board goals and all of the post-it notes that we had up there, and I made a sheet for each category and posted every note from the most votes to the least votes, so you can have this to look at for our meeting on November 9th, in case you want to look at those further.
Can I go back to Kyle's report just real quick? Now that we're into the year and it's time to go with Scooter, could you give us a Scooter update every month?
Sure.
What's going on with Scooter, to help us understand what Scooter's about and what you're doing. It's going to be slow at first.
Okay.
We don't have anything agendaed under legislative update, but you all know that there's an election coming up. 23-24 school calendar.
I have a calendar in front of you that the whole admin team had input on. It's, I don't know, 5, 6 drawings of it, maybe 7. Yeah, it took 7 to get to this point. Items I can highlight is the last 2 years we've had homecoming as a 4-day attendance day by students. We know homecoming for next year, so that is the week of September 18th through 22nd, I think. So we don't have an in-service on that day. Also, the regional volleyball is not the same as the parent-teacher conferences like we had this year. And Teresa tomorrow has already picked their trip days around those as well, so that's all been cleaned up. The one thing that's not on this calendar is I would recommend graduation being Sunday, June 2nd at 2 o'clock. When we had, this year we have graduation scheduled for the 4th of June, that same Sunday. If we want to stay with a Sunday 2 o'clock service and avoid Memorial Day weekend. We have a spring break in this one, which incorporates the Good Friday, because Good Friday is the 29th of March.
If there are no questions, is there a motion to,
So moved.
Second.
Approve the school.
Make a motion
Thank
to
you.
approve the school calendar.
Thank you.
For 23.
any questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We then have a resignation of the Title I aide.
I would move to approve the resignation of Title I aide Pamela Rachel Rooms.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Resignation of the track coach.
Make a motion to approve the resignation of Dennis Flores, track coach.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Resignation of the special education teacher.
I'll make a motion to approve the resignation of special education teacher, Christopher Carter.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Lisa, on the next item, Mr. Demise had a question where it says on the agenda, it says retirement. Mr. Demise was questioning, is it really retirement because he's still going to be part of the district as a bus driver, or is it just a resignation? And if that makes a difference.
I don't think it makes a difference. He's not going to be a custodian anymore. He's still going to be a bus driver.
And a financial way, is there any fight?
You can say, I think you call either one, you're okay. If he prefer resignation as custodian, we can put that down.
I think he
bus
would,
driver.
I think he would prefer resignation
Okay.
because he's still here as a bus driver.
Okay. Can we have?
Move to approve the resignation of Larry Demise
As a custodian.
as a custodian, sorry.
That's a question.
Unless you're back to the bus on January
Crossed out too
1st.
much.
Questions or discussion?
Who seconded it? Okay, thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Early graduation request.
I would move the approval of the early graduation request from Cynthia Diaz.
Second.
Other questions or discussion?
Very
Hearing
well
none?
written.
Pardon me?
I said very well written.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Motion to approve the WIAA Girls Swimming Co-op renewal.
Move to approve the WIAA Girls Swimming Co-op renewal.
One second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. And then a review of the 2022-23 revenue limit workshop and the tax levy.
Okay, on the first page, on the upper right, you have a box of numbers. Those numbers are all from last year, so that's your starting point. Then the first, or it's the second green box, excuse me, it says 540. That's our 3-year rolling average for the 19, 20, and 21 September accounts. And then our 3-year rolling average for 20, 21, 22 is the next one, 536. We went from 540 to 536. And that's mainly because we graduated 44 students and we have less coming in 4K this year. You will notice in the box under 2022, the summer FTE is 3, and then it says below it has a 1 in white. That's because you get 40% of the 3, and they're always generous with the rolling up of there. with 536 students. We have, on line 10B, we have a declining enrollment exemption of $44,067. They gave us the difference between 540 and 536 is 4, and that amount is multiplied by our per pupil value, which is $11,016.82. Sevastopol students are worth less than Gibraltar kids, but more than Sturgeon Bay and more than Southern Door. Every school district has its own value of a student. It goes all the way back 30-some years from the first year where they put the revenue limit worksheet in place. Our fall 22 property values is $1 billion, thanks Dick, but I always get that wrong, $980,894,470, which is up about 19% from last year.
I remember when I first started at school board, it was 1.5. 12 years ago? 10 years ago?
And we had Linda Wade here last night, and she said that the town of Sevastopol will probably do a reassessment here soon, so.
Yeah, 23, 24.
Right, so that you could, that'll probably all be adjusted. So
We just did this at NWTC, just for information. Of course, the most valuable or evaluation count is Brown. Surprisingly, Door comes in number 2. Not nearly number 2.
Okay, so you turn to page 2, you'll see the base revenue, $5,949,083. That's the amount from last year. 540 students, $11,016.82 per pupil. The minimum the state is $10,000. So some people are still ticking their way up to that minimum. If you're like a Belmont, you're still ticking your way up there. They're the poorest district in the state per pupil. And so we, if you go down lower to lines 5, 6, 7, you got the 11,000 times the 536, 5,949.83. And the way they get us there is, if you multiply that together, you won't get that, but they have the hold harmless on 7B of 44,067. And that's from the hold harmless for the declining enrollment. That number drops down and then to line 9, and you'll see line 10 is $2,174,419. That is a sum of all lines under 10, which 10A is the $2 million for a non-recurring operating cost referendum, the 4467 for declining enrollment. Then we have the energy efficiency exemption of $110,772, which you'll also see on page 4. That's how much the project cost us 15 years ago, $131,945, which is lower in the sheet. And this is the difference between what they're saving, the energy savings will save us, and what the cost of the project was. We also have an adjustment for refunded taxes of $2,136 because we collected taxes, we were given from the municipality money, and then someone didn't pay their taxes, and we had to send the municipality a check back. So they allow us to collect that at this time. And then the private school voucher aid deduction, that's money that's leaving us to go to a private school of $17,444, and I'm not sure which of our private schools get that money. But if you had to take the $5,949,083 plus the $2,174,419, you get a total of $8,123,502. And then we add on to that $32,442, which is based on our state aid. State aid, we received only $4,749 for all of our students. That's all we get. And then exempt computer properties, $2,260, and these personal property is $25,433. And I should have told you all the numbers in yellow. If you look at your first page, that's DPI data, so it's not anything you can control on that. So you have the $32,442 on to the $8,123,502 for a total of $8,091,060 we're allowed to collect.
You subtract it.
You add or subtract?
No, you subtract.
You subtract it because that's where you're getting it from the state. So I'm sorry, the rest comes from local. So that's coming from the state. So the state's giving us $32,000 total from those 4 areas. Of course, one area, high poverty, is at 0 for us. So we get to collect from the locals $8,091,060, and that has to be broken out into 2 sections because we have to commit the first $131,945 to energy efficiency. And then we have the next box on box 15, $4,022,136. The $4 million on line 15A is the debt for this building. The $20,000 is Fund 80, our community fund, which we always do $20,000. And then the charge back on the taxes is $2,136 because the upper one, you're collecting it now. The other one's getting you to pay back because you sent the check back. So our total fund levy is $12,113,196. Our levy rate, take the 12 million divided by the 1.9 billion, and our tax levy rate will be $6.12 as you round up that 0.5, so it's $6.12. And last year, I don't know, Carl, what was it, 642, 641?
641.
641, so our levy rate is going down this year. The third page, the only numbers that are important are where it says, did you under levy or over levy? And we're at 0 on both of those, so that's where you want to be. And the fourth page shows us the difference between the energy project and what the state estimates we'll have for energy savings of $21,173, and that gives you the $110,772.
How long, are they still keeping, who's keeping track of that? I mean, is Johnson Controls still reporting?
Johnson Controls gave us a report, and I sent it to DPI 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's really hard to tell now with the reconfiguring of the building, right? So when I talked to DPI, I said, well, here's our new building, you know, I talked to it a couple years ago, and they said, you're gonna have to go with the numbers they give you, because how else would you figure it out now that parts are gone and parts are here and your usage is different? Yeah, because we changed the world there.
Okay, are there questions?
6 down, boys. Okay, we're 12, but
Very good.
what is,
I think the state average is gonna be just under $10.
what's
I don't know, but we'll find out next week. It'll be way more than ours. They were at, when we were talking about referendum and the building project, they were at around 11 at that time.
From a straight marketing picture, you don't talk about yourself, nobody else can talk about it. I think the taxpayers need to know they got a brand new building, state-of-the-art building, which is going to last them another 40, 50 years, right? And they're paying $6.
612. When, before the building referendum, our mill rate was $6. And then it went up to $6.99, and it's gone down every year since, so now we're at $6.12. That's pretty good when you're at 6, and now you're at $6.12 4 years later.
I think you need to stand out in the middle of the highway and broadcast it. They're paying 12 cents more a thousand.
Well, if we had a sign, we'd put it on the sign.
And you got to think with inflation and everything else, 12 cents over 4 years is, right? Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome.
Well, maybe in the next Pioneer News, you can do
Maybe there's a
an
headline.
article about the tax bill.
I'll try and write it excitingly, yeah.
They got a new building for 12 cents.
At this point, I mean, they pay 99 the first year, and it was, what, 62, and then 41, so, yeah, it's been a pretty good deal.
It's dropped about 30 cents over the last 4 years.
And anyone that wants to take a tour, we'll show them what they got for their money.
See your 12 cent bill?
Most used to be 50 cents.
I mean, that's awesome.
Right, and now the assessment values will come out.
Tax is still,
Right.
it's good that the
We're
mill
doing
rate.
the best we can do on our end.
It's a good thing that the mill rate, because if the mill rate went up and you got assessed, you'd be really.
This is based on equalized value.
Right.
Whereas Sevastopol, I mean, like the town of Sevastopol is doing a reval because the gap between what Sevastopol, the town of Sevastopol is assessed at, and equalized value has got too large.
Right, yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean you get paid taxes.
Is this where we do the promotion card?
Correct.
I make a
Okay.
motion that we approve the,
Carl,
Right there, paper.
Carl gave us this nice nifty motion to make.
Yeah, yeah, Mike.
This is the motion.
I make a motion to approve the 2022-2023 revenue limit at $12,113,196. $7,959,115 for the general fund, $2,136 for tax chargebacks, $131,945 for the debt service fund, $4 million for the capital expansion fund, and $20 million for the community service fund.
20,000.
Oh, 20,000. Excuse me.
Is there a
Carl had
second?
a heart palpitation.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Good job, people.
Then we'll look at the final budget for 22-23, 2022-23.
Turn over to Carl. Go ahead, Carl.
So everybody should have a sheet that says 22-23 budget with revenues and expenses. Revenues on top. Now, what we'll say is when Mr. Lukey and I went through the numbers, first of all, we got input. Well, each department gave us their numbers, what they needed. Principals and administration went through them, adjusted one way or another what they thought needed to be. Then we went through, got with each department head and what their numbers were, what they needed. We also went through and looked at all the revenues where we thought we were going to be, looked at DPI, see what the aids and stuff things were going to be. So as you see, Fund 10 expenses are about $1 million over what the revenues are, but if you look at the bottom, where we have the Fund 27 and Fund 50 transfers, now Fund 50 and Fund 27 both have to end up at zero. So you have to transfer money from Fund 10 into those to make them zero. So actually, without the transfers, our Fund 10 expenses are actually less than our projected revenues. But we still have to pay for the transfers, so. And then the rest of so Fund 39 is what we're getting for the capital expense, $1,000 I put in there for interest, which all stays in Fund 39 and has to be used for that. Fund 46, I figured about $5,000 in interest, but our expenses are $1.5 million. That's paying for the Fund 2 project, or the Phase 2 playground and those things.
Well, and the air handler.
And yeah, correct, the air handler also. No income for Fund 49, but we still have $8,000 out there as retainage, and that won't be paid until everything with the building is taken care of. The biggest thing is the greenhouse. Until that gets taken care of, that liability is still going to be on our books. And in Fund 50 is the same back and forth. Fund 80, expenses higher we got coming in, but we have a fund balance in Fund 80, so we're hoping to bring that down and be able to offer more projects in that, or classes for the community and things like that. So that's what we have. Anybody have any questions where we have our revenues and expenses?
Is Fund 10 figured with current inflation rate?
Yes. We went through, biggest thing we went through with the building with Mr. Petrino. Went through and figured out what we figured we're possibly going to use for fuel, what our insurance is going to be, what projects he has.
And then you gotta remember, there's 2 buses on this one because we ordered the bus last year and she didn't come until September, so that's on this. We have 2 buses on this one in. Oh, you remember, we ordered the second bus in April and it was supposed to come in January, and 2 weeks ago we had a call now saying it might be February or March. Yeah.
And the one bus that we just got was $112,000. We're looking at about $118,000 for the second one.
In 2 years it was $85,000 for a bus.
How much is it now? 100?
The one we just got was $112,000, and the new one that we're ordering, that's on order, is $118,000. And the Mr. Rookie said 2 years ago was 85,000.
I know there's restrictions in some of the funds and how they're used, but right, I mean, is it right to look at our revenue versus our expenses overall, and the delta's $56,000? That's a way better number than $1 million in Fund 10. Is that valid? So for the, that's, I like that.
Repeat.
If I took my total, your revenue number at 16, the total, that's a sum.
Right.
Minus the expenses of 17,024, the delta there is $56,768. And based on your projections and everything, I think that's a pretty good place to be.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
overall,
When I heard
Overall,
Fund 10
yes, but
difference
no,
of $1
we have
million,
to keep each
I
fund
had to Google
separate,
that.
right. Yeah, we have to keep each fund separate though.
You know,
right,
but it's all
Right.
school money.
well, because if you look at the Fund 39.
Yeah, but it's earmarked,
I know.
it's designated.
But it's all, I get it.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
You,
I know, it looks, I know what you're saying, but no, it's designated for each
when
area.
you look at a budget, you should look at your operating budget for Fund 10, and that's what your other stuff is. Don't forget.
David, with you.
I'm just saying.
So Fund 10 is really where the big hit is, and that's where all the deductions we have to come from if we didn't have the money to make up that difference, then our programs would be suffering.
Right.
So that's the one we care about.
So
That's an economics comment, and how big do you want to dig into it?
Right.
I'm not a big,
Yeah.
I'm not a deep digger, I'm just.
You can't keep going this way. Like 3 years from now, we'll go referendum in 2024. That's why we're going back to the people, right? Right.
And as you say on the revenue and worship, where we're at, what we're allowed to charge, that's why we got to go back and have the operating.
Well, and if you read Sue's report, the big push would be to get more funding in special education because we transferred over $1 million into special ed. If we could get some of that, what are you looking for, Sue? Like 60% out of 30%?
In special
In
education.
special education?
60% funded in special ed versus 30%?
Right now, we get about 30% funding.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
you're in the push legislatively to get up to 60%.
Well, and WASB is pushing for 90%.
I'd be happy with this.
I would be happy with 60.
90 would look good.
See what 90
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to, yeah, right.
So,
Right.
Yeah,
You got $4 million already.
Well, unfortunately, we don't. The state does. Right, they don't, they got, does it trickle down maybe? I don't know.
does anyone have any other questions about this?
I would just say that special ed is certainly something, special ed funding is certainly something we should be looking at legislatively, both at the federal and state levels.
Questions or comments for Carl? If there aren't any, we'll look for a motion to approve.
And this one you can just do as presented. I have the numbers in the minutes, but we can just do as presented.
move to approve the 2022-2023 budget as presented.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That would conclude our regular business for the evening. We'll look for a motion for the board to convene to executive session.
Move the meeting go into executive session.
Second.
Roll call vote. Keith?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried at 8:37 PM. Open session at 9:02 PM. We'll look for a motion then first on the custodian.
Make a motion to approve the hiring of Dennis Brewer as a custodian.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The special education teacher.
Move to approve Elizabeth Fahey as a special education teacher.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Special education aid.
Move to approve the hiring of Jessica McCoy as a special education aide.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Motion on the head track coach.
Make a motion to approve the hire of Tanya Hasmaker as a head track coach.
No second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have our regular school board meeting on November 16th. We have the board goals follow-up meeting on November 9th. Mr. Woodley will be in touch with the Building and Grounds Committee for their meeting.
What time was the board goals?
6 to 8.
6 to 8.
Yeah, we do a 2-hour limit, right?
Right.
6 to 8, yep. Same as last time.
So if there's no other business, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried at 9:04 PM.